The food delivery app showed the order as completed: a burger, fries, and a vanilla milkshake order, just after midnight from a quiet apartment in the United States. The driver later told police the young woman looked nervous when she opened the door. She kept looking over her shoulder as if someone was inside the apartment with her. Less than 12 hours later, she was gone. No goodbye message, no phone calls, no trace. Only a half-finished meal sitting on the kitchen counter and a mystery that would haunt investigators for years. This is the story of a woman who ordered food at midnight, then was never seen again. It was the summer of 2019 in the city of Columbus, Ohio. 26-year-old Emily Carter lived alone in a small apartment complex on the east side of the city. To her friends, Emily was smart, independent, and careful. She worked as a medical receptionist at a local clinic and rarely missed a day of work. Her co-workers described her as quiet but kind, someone who remembered birthdays and always stayed late to help others. Emily's life appeared ordinary from the outside, but in the weeks before her disappearance, people close to her noticed something had changed. She had become withdrawn, nervous, and distracted. Friends later told police that Emily had recently ended a difficult relationship with a man named Daniel Reeves. The two had dated for nearly 2 years before separating just 3 months earlier. According to Emily's closest friend Rachel, the breakup had not been peaceful. Daniel reportedly refused to accept that the relationship was over. Emily had told several people that Daniel constantly called her, showed up unexpectedly at her workplace, and sent long, emotional messages late at night. At first, she believed he was simply heartbroken, but eventually she began to feel afraid. 1 week before she vanished, Emily allegedly told Rachel something disturbing. "He keeps saying if he can't have me, nobody can." At the time, Rachel thought Daniel was only being dramatic. She never imagined those words would later become part of a police investigation. On the evening of July 18, 2019, Emily finished her shift at the clinic around 6 p.m. Surveillance footage showed her stopping at a grocery store before returning home. Shortly after 7 p.m., she texted her mother around 8:15 p.m., saying she was tired and planned to spend the night watching movies. Nothing about the evening seemed unusual. At 11:47 p.m., Emily opened a food delivery app on her phone and ordered a cheeseburger combo meal from a nearby diner. The order was confirmed at 11:52 p.m. The delivery driver, a college student named Marcus Hill, arrived at Emily's apartment building shortly after midnight. Years later, Marcus would still remember the interaction clearly. He told investigators the apartment door opened only halfway. Emily accepted the food quickly and appeared anxious. Marcus said she repeatedly glanced behind her into the dark apartment while speaking to him. Then she asked a strange question. "Did you see anyone outside?" Marcus looked around the parking lot and said no. Emily hesitated for a moment before quietly thanking him and shutting the door. That was the last confirmed sighting of Emily Carter alive. The next morning, Emily failed to show up for work. At first, co-workers assumed she was sick, but by afternoon, concern began to grow. Emily was known for always answering calls and messages, yet her phone went directly to voicemail. By evening, Rachel drove to Emily's apartment. What she found immediately felt wrong. Emily's car was still parked outside. Her purse and wallet were inside the apartment. The television was still on. On the kitchen counter sat the half-eaten burger and untouched fries she had ordered the night before, but Emily was nowhere to be found. Rachel called police at 7:34 p.m. Officers initially treated the case as a possible voluntary disappearance. Adults, they explained, had the right to leave if they wanted. But when investigators entered the apartment, several details quickly raised alarms. There were no signs of packing, no missing luggage, and no evidence that Emily planned to travel anywhere. More disturbingly, detectives found her cell phone charger plugged into the wall beside her bed. Emily had apparently left without her charger, something friends insisted she never did. Then investigators discovered something else. Near the kitchen floor, partially hidden beneath a chair, was a broken acrylic fingernail with traces of blood on it. Forensic testing later confirmed the blood belonged to Emily. Suddenly, the case changed from a missing persons investigation into something far more serious. Police began interviewing everyone in Emily's life. Co-workers described her recent anxiety. Friends mentioned the breakup with Daniel Reeves. Detectives soon learned that Daniel had continued contacting Emily almost daily after the relationship ended. When police questioned Daniel, he appeared calm and cooperative. He admitted he still loved Emily. He admitted he had tried to reconnect with her, but he denied threatening her or visiting her apartment that night. Daniel claimed he had spent the evening drinking with friends at a sports bar across town. At first, his alibi appeared solid. Several witnesses confirmed seeing him there. Security footage also captured Daniel inside the bar around 10 p.m. But investigators noticed something important. The footage ended at 11:08 p.m. There was no proof Daniel stayed afterward, and Emily's food order had arrived after midnight. Detectives obtained phone records and discovered Daniel's cell phone briefly connected to a cell tower less than 2 miles from Emily's apartment around 12:17 a.m. When confronted, Daniel claimed he had driven around to clear his head after leaving the bar. Police were suspicious, but they still lacked direct evidence. Days turned into weeks. Search teams combed wooded areas outside Columbus. Divers searched nearby rivers. Emily's face appeared across television, broadcasts, and missing persons posters throughout Ohio, but there were no sightings, no body, and no answers. Then, nearly 1 month after Emily disappeared, investigators received an unexpected break in the case. A maintenance worker at Emily's apartment complex contacted police after discovering something hidden hidden inside a dumpster enclosure behind the building. It was a woman's silver necklace. Rachel immediately identified it as Emily's favorite necklace, one she wore almost every day. Forensic examination revealed tiny traces of skin tissue trapped inside the broken clasp. DNA confirmed it belonged to Emily. Police returned to the apartment complex and expanded their search. Behind the dumpsters, detectives found faint stains on the concrete that tested positive for blood. The evidence suggested Emily may have been attacked outside the building after leaving her apartment. But why would she leave in the middle of the night? Investigators then focused on Emily's final digital activity. At 12:26 a.m., only minutes after the food delivery arrived, Emily's phone opened a messaging app. An unsent draft message was discovered. It contained only 4 chilling words. "He's here. I'm scared." The message had never been sent. Police now believed Emily may have encountered someone she feared shortly after receiving her food delivery. Attention once again turned toward Daniel Reeves. Investigators searched his vehicle but found nothing significant. However, forensic teams detected traces of recently cleaned carpet fibers in the trunk area. Chemical analysis suggested bleach had been used heavily inside the vehicle within days of Emily's disappearance. Still, prosecutors argued there was not enough evidence to charge him. Then came the twist that changed everything. In October 2019, a woman named Laura Mitchell walked into a police station nearly 200 miles away in West Virginia. She claimed she had information about Emily Carter's disappearance. Laura had recently ended a relationship with Daniel Reeves, and according to her, Daniel carried a terrible secret. Laura told detectives that during an argument, Daniel became drunk and emotional. He allegedly confessed that he had gone to Emily's apartment the night she vanished to talk things out. According to Laura, Daniel claimed Emily panicked when she saw him outside. She threatened to call police. Daniel said an argument followed near the dumpsters behind the apartment building. Then things turned violent. Laura told investigators Daniel claimed he accidentally struck Emily during the confrontation, causing her to fall and hit her head on the concrete. At first, detectives were cautious. Confessions reported secondhand can be unreliable, but Laura provided one detail that had never been released publicly. She mentioned the broken necklace. Only investigators knew Emily's necklace had been found behind the building. Suddenly, Laura's story became far more credible. Police secretly recorded additional conversations between Laura and Daniel. During one recording, Daniel could be heard saying something investigators considered deeply incriminating. "She wasn't supposed to die." The case exploded across national media. Daniel Reeves was arrested in November 2019 and charged with murder, despite Emily's body still being missing. Prosecutors argued Daniel killed Emily during a confrontation, disposed of her body, and attempted to cover up the crime. But the defense fought back aggressively. Daniel's attorneys claimed there was no physical proof Emily was dead. They argued the prosecution's case relied entirely on circumstantial evidence and unreliable witness testimony. The trial began in early 2021. Inside the courtroom, prosecutors carefully reconstructed the final hours of Emily's life. The jury heard the 911 call from Rachel. They saw surveillance footage of the food delivery driver arriving at the apartment complex. They listened to experts explain the blood evidence near the dumpsters, and they heard the haunting unsent message recovered from Emily's phone. "He's here. I'm scared." Marcus Hill, the delivery driver, also testified. He described Emily's fearful expression and the way she repeatedly looked behind her while accepting the food order. Then came Laura Mitchell's testimony. For hours, the courtroom remained silent as she described Daniel's alleged confession. Prosecutors also played portions of the secret recordings. "She wasn't supposed to die." The defense argued the statement was vague and meaningless. They suggested Laura fabricated the story out of revenge after their breakup, but prosecutors presented one final piece of evidence that stunned the courtroom. Investigators had recovered microscopic traces of Emily's blood inside the trunk lining of Daniel's vehicle using advanced forensic testing. The amount was tiny, invisible to the human eye, but the DNA match was undeniable. For prosecutors, it was enough. After 3 days of deliberation, the jury returned with a verdict: guilty. Daniel Reeves was convicted of second-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison. Yet even after the conviction, one terrible question remained unanswered. Where was Emily Carter? To this day, her body has never been found. Some investigators believe Daniel disposed of her remains in a remote rural area during the hours after the attack. Others suspect he may have received help from someone who has never come forward. Without a body, Emily's family was denied the closure most families desperately seek. No funeral, no grave, only silence. Years later, Emily's mother would describe the pain in heartbreaking terms. "It feels like she disappeared into the dark and never came home." The case also raised disturbing questions about stalking, emotional obsession, and warning signs that are often ignored until tragedy happens. Friends later admitted they underestimated Daniel's behavior. Repeated calls, sudden appearances, emotional threats. At the time, many saw those actions as signs of heartbreak, but investigators believed they were signs of escalation. Experts who studied the case pointed to a terrifying reality seen in many true crime investigations. Violence often begins long before the physical attack. It begins with control, obsession, and fear. Sometimes the victim recognizes the danger before anyone else does. Emily's final unsent message remains one of the most haunting details in the entire investigation. "He's here. I'm scared." 4 simple words. Words typed by someone who may have known in her final moments alerts that something terrible was about to happen. Today, Emily Carter's case continues to be discussed in criminal justice courses and investigative documentaries across the United States, not only because of the mystery surrounding her disappearance, but because it revealed how digital evidence, forensic science, and human behavior can come together to solve a murder even without a body. Still, for Emily's family, justice has never felt complete. Every birthday passes without answers. Every holiday arrives with an empty chair at the table. And somewhere, hidden beyond the reach of investigators, lies the final secret of what happened that night after. Emily accepted a midnight food delivery. A simple order, a knock at the door, and then nothing. Sometimes the most terrifying disappearances do not happen in dark alleys or isolated highways. Sometimes they happen inside ordinary apartments on ordinary nights under the quiet glow of a television screen while untouched fries grow cold on a kitchen counter. And by the time the world notices someone is missing, the truth is already buried in silence.